There's, we're, I'm not even getting into it. I'm not even getting.
Oh, I see some
Here's
fire.
what I would.
What's up, everybody? My name is Adam, and I'm the host of the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, the show that is dedicated on bringing on passionate people, learning about their stories, and delivering value to entrepreneurs. So if that's what you're interested in, go ahead and follow, like, and subscribe. You know what I'm saying?
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, where you get to know just a little bit more about people, passions, and all things business. Today, sitting across the way, I have April Trepagnier.
Nice.
Of Titan Advertising, as well as the Bitches Bourbon podcast.
Yes.
April, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Adam. I sure do appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I have to be honest. When you messaged me this morning, I saw all the messages that we had gone back and forth, but I could not recall like where it came from, how we got connected. But I believe it was through maybe an online post or something like that, right?
Instagram.
Fantastic. Was it connected through Whiskey Grail?
I think you liked one of my whiskey posts.
Okay.
When I think a new podcast had dropped.
Yep.
And I'd posted it on Insta, and I think you liked it, and I saw Whiskey Grail, and I was like, I have to check this out, and then I didn't realize that was here in Statesboro.
Yes.
So it's right around the corner from me.
Fantastic.
And so that's when you said hello, I said hello, and now here we are.
Fantastic. April, you said that you are around the area. Where are you actually from?
So I actually live in Richmond Hill, but I'm a grad student on campus at Georgia Southern University. So.
Fantastic. And how's that experience going for you
As
a grad student?
Well, that part is just starting. It was kind of... And I guess we'll talk more about the entrepreneurship as we progress. But one of that, I graduated high school and went directly into the military. So I've never been to school.
Okay.
But I always thought I'd be really good at it.
Okay.
So I did the Navy for 12 years. And then now my husband and I have built a business.
Yep.
And the building of that business has afforded me the opportunity to go to school.
That's awesome.
As a passion project. And so I graduated with my undergrad in May. And now I will start with the new master's cohort here in the fall.
Nice. And so in this, as a student that's going back to school, right? Because you did not take kind of like the quote unquote traditional path to, get to school. How does that feel, right? Like, what led you to really take that jump into education?
Well, I think it's something I always wanted to do, but never felt financially secure enough to do, right? It was one of those things where we grew up very poor, very limited on our resources. And so when you're trying to make decisions on how do you take the next step into adulthood, how do you become an adult, like what do you do? It was always find a job.
Yeah.
It's always been find a job.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and it was a great job. I loved what I did. But then you start to build a family and your priorities kind of shift. And you try to figure out what's important to you.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that my calendar was really important to me.
Yeah.
And all of the W-2 opportunities that you have, and when you go and you find a career, a job, they own your calendar for a pretty large chunk of your life. That's their calendar. And I just decided that I really wanted to put myself in a position where I could buy my calendar back and a place where you can't afford my calendar.
Yeah.
So everything that's on there is what I want it to be. So my husband and I, we worked really hard and we built this business, and now my calendar is my calendar. And we kind of grew it more vertical than horizontal, more horizontal than vertical. And that really gave me the opportunity to go explore new things while still being able to maintain the duties that I had at the office.
That's an amazing story. I think that's just such an inspiration, right? Like, because I think a lot of times people think that the only path is, you have to get your education. But, you believed in yourself. You kind of took the steps necessary to actually do it. And now you have the freedom, right? And now you have the opportunity to go back to school if you want, and so many different things open.
And it changes education for you. So many folks that I'm in school with are in school so that they can get a job, or they can do a career, they can build their life. So at some level, that schooling for them, there's a mold that they kind of have to follow because they need it to get to the next step. I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm an English major. That's what I study.
Yeah.
And I can say what I want to about those things. And my commentary can be either in line with or counter to what everybody else is saying about it. And I really I really don't care.
Yeah.
So because it's not a stepping stone for me. It really has gone the way of a passion project. And as all passion projects are, I can really mold them. I can mold that to be the experience I want it to be, not the experience that somebody else wants it to be.
So tell me about Titan Advertising. It started in...
So we became our own incorporated in 2017, but it's a job that my husband has done for many years.
Okay.
So, and it kind of morphs and changes over the years, advertising type stuff,
Sure.
shifts and changes. And interestingly enough, it's like almost every other cool job I've ever heard of. It's nothing that your high school counselor is ever going to tell you about. And when you go to talk to other people, nobody's ever going to know what you mean. So the elevator pitch for my particular company is we do a specialty event and lead generation for major manufacturer car dealerships all across the country.
Okay.
And you tell folks that, and that's exactly what they say. They nod and they go, okay.
Okay.
And they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And so what I'll tell people, especially people that are like my age, is that, so do you remember, and you may be familiar too, do you remember, they don't happen as much anymore, but when you'd get in the mail, these car flyers and there'd be a key on it that says, bring the key to the dealership and maybe you've won a car?
I've seen this before. I've actually, in recent years, right? Like this
You're
is
welcome.
Something. Yeah, that was you?
Yeah, it may not have been me, but it is a company like me.
Got you.
And so what we do is we develop marketing programs for specialized limited runs. And it can be anywhere. I think our shortest event is probably 3 days, up to 2 weeks. And some of them go month long, depending on the way their marketing works. And
wait, so sorry, I have to clarify. You mentioned an event. But what I heard was a piece of mail. So the piece of mail is there to drive people to the event.
Correct.
Got
and
it.
that's usually what the mail will say, 3 days only, 10 days only.
Yeah.
And so that's what drives the consumer to the sale, right? And so that's kind of morphed over the years. We don't do mail so much anymore. We absolutely will. We can.
Sure.
Almost all of it is moved to social media, which is very interesting. Now, instead of there being a whole bunch of folks on the phone, we have our call center revolves more along the lines of on a computer interfacing with customers that way.
That's amazing. Let's talk about that, right?
Okay.
So in terms of mail, what have you seen happen over this period of time that has not made that process as effective as it used to be?
Well, mail was fantastic. It was dollar for dollar. It was the biggest range of a centralized geographical demographic that you could hold on to, because in car dealerships and industry like that, the demographic's not going to be necessarily a income range or something like that. It is going to be geography.
Sure.
There is a dealership here, but that same dealership is going to be 2 towns over. So everybody in this town is going to go to this dealership, and everybody in this town is going to this dealership because it's the same product, right? So mail was easy to get into the households you wanted to get into. Junk mail becomes a thing, right? So nobody's paying attention to it, and you have to get more excitable in the mail, which is hard to do and still run a reputable business, which we insist upon doing.
Sure.
So then social media comes out, and then social media gives you the ability to move that.
Yeah.
So you can once you drop mail's gone.
Yeah.
Social media, you can drop it, watch how it works, and then move it if you need to move it. So it's much more responsive. Of course, it's also social media, so it gets a little more interesting about how you respond to people and how you talk to people and your public face. So you have to be more careful about those things and make sure you train your folks up. But it's sales 101. The sales today is no different than sales 50 years ago. You're just talking to people, building relationships, and trying to make everybody happy.
Did you always know that, the entrepreneur thing was going to be the path?
No. Oh, God, no. Absolutely. Up till maybe 15 years ago, I didn't
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When you grow up the way I grew up, that you don't know anybody like that. everybody needs a W-2 because you need to be able to pay your taxes and you need to have benefits and you need to have vacation time and you need a retirement and and the only people that can give you those things is a corporation. You don't realize that you can build something yourself that makes that a self-funded benefit.
Wow.
Right? So when you don't have those influences, when you're not exposed to those kind of things, you look at what people have done, you have no idea how they did that. Like, maybe they must have had money, like their parents had money, and I've missed that boat, so I don't even know how to get to where I'm going to the next time. Until, honestly, my foray into entrepreneurship was a real estate job. And that's when, I sold cars for a little while, and then I got into real estate. But that's when you realize that you eat what you kill. And that's a whole different mindset of hustle. That's a whole different mindset of growth and business and work. When I'm not going to get a paycheck from a person and there's no person telling me how much money I can make. So that's just all up to me. Like it's there for me to kind of, first time I ever had control of my own destiny was a car lot, which is the easiest sales job to get.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
It just sells itself?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they need you, right?
Yeah.
Like they need you on the floor. Like, so it's a sales job, commission-based sales job. If you ever thought that maybe an entrepreneurship was your jam, any commission-based sales job is kind of a really kind of great place to cut your teeth. The jobs are pretty available. They're going to hire you because it doesn't cost them anything.
Sure.
And then you get to figure out, if you've got what it takes to kind of be there every day, all the time, because if you're not there, who's there to sell for you but you?
That's right.
And so I did. I liked it. It was a really great time. I enjoyed it. I was ready for my husband to stop traveling all the time. And so to get him home, that's what we did. We built a business so he didn't have to travel anymore.
Got you. You mentioned this a few times already, but tell me about kind of like growing up. Where were you born?
I was born at my dad's Hawaiian.
Okay.
So I was born in Kapiolani Hospital in Honolulu. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How'd you make it over to the mainland?
So my mother is from Tybee Island.
Okay.
My dad was in the Army, stationed at Hunter.
Got you.
And here I am.
Nice.
So I grew up right outside of Savannah. It was great. I mean, we didn't know we were poor. I mean, we didn't, like so many. I mean, we didn't know. We just knew that we were. I mean, it was later when we were like, you just are. So figure it out. And you only start to realize it when it's time to go to college and everybody's talking about where they're going and nobody in your house knows how to get you there.
Wow.
Like there's no frame of reference. They've never thought about going. Nobody knows anything about how to do those things. Now, it freaks my kids out. We have 6 children, and it just blows their brain that my husband bought me my first clothes dryer. Like I didn't have a clothes dryer till I was almost in my 20s. So, but it was great because there's a grit there that you learn. There's a hunger there that you kind of get down with, that you're just like, I can live in a cardboard box and I will be fine. Like I know how to live off of rice and Spam, right? That's fine. I can do it. Or I cannot. And either way, I'm good. Either way, I'm happy. Happiness doesn't come from those things.
I think that element is so important, right? My parents were immigrants coming to the U.S. and they came with 2 suitcases, right? Had nothing. And seeing their journey of what they've been able to accomplish is absolutely an inspiration to me. The fact that, you did not have a clothes dryer, like, something that is at this point like so common, right? Like apartments come with them at this point. It's such a massive mind shift to realize that what is out there is definitely capable of, like you are capable of achieving anything that you put your mind to. So you and your husband made the leap to go into business. What was that like to do it? So talk to me about that moment in time when you like, hey, let's do this.
So he was getting increasingly frustrated and I was getting increasingly frustrated because not only are you gone 3 days, 4 days out of the week, but when you're here, you're frustrated about those things.
Okay.
So for Christmas, I had a Christmas card and you can get an LLC in the state of Georgia for $25. That's what it cost.
Yeah.
So that's what's in his Christmas card is I bought the LLC. And I said, so what are you going to do? And I think
that's one way to send a message. That's one way to do it.
I'm like, here you go. And so I became his project manager and he began to build the business, the book of business. And I would say They'll tell you about marriage that there's two things. If you can make it through two of these things, that your marriage will make it. Building a house and building a business. Like if you can do that as a couple, there's not a whole lot you can't do. And it was exhausting and it was tough. Like I had to realize that his bedroom voice and his office voice, they were going to be different. And I could either be upset with him for getting the way he gets when he's working.
Yeah.
Or I can understand the fact that he is just as scared as I am, and he's trying to make sure our mortgage gets paid. And so maybe I have to separate the message from the messenger and just do my job.
That's a gem right there. That's a
Right?
huge gem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was probably, it didn't take long and it wasn't hard. It was hard, but it didn't take long. You just had to completely sell out to the idea. You had to completely sell out to
Commit.
the idea. Yeah, that this is my husband and I love him and he loves me. And sometimes my husband and my business partner sound different. And that's either has to be okay or you stop right now. Like those are the only options. And what I wasn't willing to do is to hire somebody to do what I could do. And so I had to figure out how to put my own ego in check to make that job work.
Okay, so project management is not something that you come out of the. Did you come out of the Navy with that?
No. Self-taught.
Self-taught. How
yes.
did you do that?
So in the car business a little bit, real estate a lot, where there's no place to clock in, there's no place to clock out. You basically run your own business, and if you starve, then that's on you. And so you have to learn how to prioritize your time. You have to learn, this is what a marketing budget looks like. This is how much money I need to make to break even. This is what's worth getting out of bed for. This is what's not worth it at all. You can't spend money to make money without a plan, right? You obviously have to do that, but people will spend money to make money without a plan, and they'll find out that they've broken themselves and have nothing to show for it. So that's kind of where that came from, was learning how to build a real estate business, which was very successful. I ended up with a property management company, and I had 250 properties in 4 counties.
Wow.
So a lot of it came from that.
So you had already kind of like ventured into kind of like entrepreneurship by this point, right?
Yeah.
And so like I think looking at that aspect of it, how when you talk about real estate, what kind of like got you into real estate initially?
Oh yeah, so I had just gotten out of the Navy, bunch of kids, just got home from deployment. Really didn't want to leave them anymore. So I thought, Georgia has this thing called Troops to Teachers. I don't even know if they have it anymore. So I thought that's what I was going to do, right?
Become a teacher.
Yeah, I was still in the mindset where you get a job, right?
Sure.
And so that was the job. It would allow me the opportunity to hang out with my kids in summers and schedules and those kind of things. So I was substitute teaching while I was working on those credentials. And I'm like, I am going to end up in jail.
Why?
Like, this is never going to work. Like, this is because I'm not even getting into it. I'm not even getting.
Oh, I see some
here's
fire.
What I will tell you. Here's what I will tell you after being a proactive advocate for my own children's education.
Okay.
Like, if we're supposed to be taking care of children, if we're supposed to be educating children, we're doing it wrong.
You think so?
Like, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The public school system.
Yeah, we're doing it wrong. And I don't even know if the private school system at this point is doing it a whole lot better.
What do you think is the issue?
I think everybody's worried about what they look like on paper.
Agree?
Right? Like everybody's worried about their test scores, and instead of looking at their kids in a holistic way. And I know that it's hard. I know that it's hard to give that kind of one-on-one attention to a child in a school system that's trying to put through 1,500 kids a year, right? And that's just a school, not a whole school district. So I get that that's difficult. Because I'm a businesswoman, I understand what profit and loss looks like. I understand resources and how that works. But I couldn't do that. Like I couldn't watch children. Like, you're supposed to teach these children, but they haven't eaten in 2 days. So like, what are you gonna, like? You can't teach a hungry baby. Can't. Right?
Yeah.
A child that hasn't been able to get a shower is not in any kind of mindset to want to learn something. But that's what we're going to prioritize, are test scores and what we look like on paper. And yeah, I just couldn't.
What? So let's talk about this because it's interesting to me, right? Like, how is is there a solution?
Oh, I'm sure there is that I don't know. I wouldn't even, my hubris as large as it can get sometimes doesn't even, I couldn't even imagine how to fix it at this point. At this point, I think that it's become so amazingly entrenched in things outside of simple education that I wouldn't even begin to understand. I have so much empathy for people that can do that job on a regular basis. I've got some friends of mine that are just some of the best teachers on the planet, and I don't know how they do it every day. Like, I'm in so awe of them and their commitment and their ability. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. What did you do with your children then, if you did not?
So then what I did was I was like, well, this isn't going to work, so I guess I'd better go get a job that lets me do my own schedule.
Okay.
And that's when a girlfriend of mine said, why don't you come sell real estate?
Okay.
And I'm like, well, there's an idea. I've never done anything like that before. And so, yeah, that's when I said, but nobody tells you when you start that it's a grind. Like, the only reason you get to see your kids, you get to hang out with your kids after school is that because you've made the decision to not sleep until 2.
Yeah.
Right? Because building a business is not for the weak. It's not for the faint of heart. And honestly, it's just not for everybody. And that's okay. Right? I don't think there should be, I think there's been a lot of judgment lately about what kind of job you have and what you're able to do. And the truth is, I'm so thankful that there are people out there who do prefer corporate work, because I rely on the services of a lot of corporate entities. So thank you for them. Teachers, thank you for them. Right? And so, but I think it takes a lot of self-awareness and lack of judgment against yourself to go, I am cut out for this. I am not cut out for that.
What advice would you have to, you mentioned self-reflection of understanding oneself before they, take that leap of faith into entrepreneurship. How would one identify whether or not they have it or not?
First, you have to own it all. Like, if you've got a scapegoat, if you've got something that you blame stuff on, you've got to cut it loose. Like, it's like you own all of it. If all of the glory is yours, then all the shit has to be yours too. Oh, sorry. Can I say that?
You can say whatever you want.
Sorry. Sorry. But you have to own it. Like, there is, like, you're either the boss or you're not the boss, right? And if you're going to be the boss, then all of it's yours. So you can't have scapegoats. It's all you. And then I think I would liken it most to physical exercise. So when I was distance running, you had to be real in tune with your body, right? Because not all pain is hurtful. Not all pain is negative. Some shit just hurts, right? Running 50 miles in July just hurts. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Doesn't mean there's anything broken. It means you either give in to the pain or you work through it. On the flip side of that, not all pain is meant to be worked through. Like, some pain requires healing. Some pain requires you to step back and slow down and back off. So I think you have to be able to kind of get real comfortable with yourself and go, I'm being a complete sellout right now by giving up. This is something I could totally work through. I am choosing not to work through it. Or this is a real problem and maybe I'm not well suited. Maybe I have found a weakness in my skill set and I need to back off and say, this is not for me to do. You have to be able to do both of those things.
We just in here dropping massive gems right now. That is amazing. I love that perspective, right? I think oftentimes there is, what people don't realize is entrepreneurship is very challenging, and the grit and the determination and pushing through the pain. I joke about this, but like I'm literally out here just like, stuff happens, right? Like we're constantly just putting out fires. We're getting like, stomped on. Like all that is just part of the journey. And if you're not willing to accept that, you can never climb to kind of like the other side of that and see the light. And so I love kind of like the way that you put that. Talk to me about your passion for bourbon. Where does that come in?
That comes from my father.
Okay.
That comes from my dad. So we've always... whiskey's always been something that's been near and dear to my heart. It's one of those things I've always enjoyed. People will tell you that I am my father's son. That's what my dad, my mom have nothing but girls except me, they will tell you. So Dad and I have always been tight like that. And so, yeah, whiskey's just always been a thing. There was a point in my early 20s, I suppose, where it was cosmopolitans and fruity drinks, but I never really liked them. Like, I never really got a taste for them. It's always been whiskey out the bottle. And whiskey is one of those liquors that you can't rush. I mean, you can, and then it's going to be shit.
Yeah.
And so whiskey takes what whiskey takes. And so when people look at a whiskey bottle and they're like, oh, whatever people think about people that drink whiskey, what I see is commitment. What I see is dedication to a craft, to an idea that somebody committed to when they knew they weren't going to make a dollar for years and years and years, because this stuff just has to sit in the barrel and do what it does. But they had faith in that. They had a commitment to that and agreed to it. And in a lot of instances, it's usually somewhere a husband and a wife. Now, maybe they're not both in the limelight, but it's almost always that, where somebody wants to do a thing and then the person that they love and respect supports them enough to do this super scary thing.
Yeah.
And to move through. And whiskey stories are always fantastic. And then at the end of the day, it's just a great tasting liquor.
And when did you start your podcast?
The podcast actually was a COVID-inspired ordeal. So a friend of mine met, and she didn't really know a whole lot of women that were primarily whiskey drinkers. I didn't know a whole lot of women that were primarily whiskey drinkers, and they kind of became our COVID family. And my husband is from New Orleans, so he cooks great meals. So they would always come over and we would eat together more often than we wouldn't to keep that COVID kind of didn't see anybody else.
Sure.
So they started bringing bottles, and it was something that we had not had before.
Yeah.
And then our husbands said, you ladies know more about whiskey than most people. And her husband said, so often I'm in the liquor store and there's a woman that is either talked like crap to by the person working in the liquor store, or is just afraid to ask. You guys should start a podcast. You should call it Bitches and Bourbon.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, nobody owned the website. So for $12, I bought bitchesandbourbon.com.
Nice.
Which is really funny because my co-host, she does prefer bourbon, but as far as whiskey goes, I prefer scotch. But scotch and I don't know what you would even Sally's or I don't even know what you'd put with that. But Bitches and Bourbon was just fun, and the guys really liked it, and the husbands thought it was cute, and so we rode with it.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing that for?
2 years,
3 years now?
2-3 years now we've been doing it, and it's been a lot of fun. It's now started to get. So when we started, I didn't know shit about a podcast. So I taught myself how to do it. It was COVID. You had plenty of time. But then you start to learn what you're doing. You go back and you listen to those first episodes. And I don't even know if the new ones are any better. But the first ones, you're just listening to them. And that's when you get real humble. And it gets easier to publish because you just don't take yourself that seriously. Like this is who I am. This is my authentic self, and I'm just putting it out there, which has worked out really well for us because in an upcoming episode, we'll have Lauren Patz. She's the head distiller from Redwood Empire Distillery.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
She's coming on the show. Last episode we just dropped had Rashad Powell from Island John Vodka. And he was on the show. And tomorrow we actually have an interview scheduled with Lauren from Two Bitch Bourbon. Her and her husband founded Two Bitch Bourbon. So it's gotten to be a lot. I mean, it's steady putting out content, and just rolling with it and having a good time.
I can tell a difference. So I've interviewed, I do one podcast every single week. I usually kind of like try to stack it up as much as I can. But I can tell that you're very well spoken. Like, it's so easy to talk to you. I can tell that there's a difference between like the quality of talking to somebody that actually does host podcasts. Very eloquent. I definitely hear kind of like the skill there. And so give me an idea of like how many episodes that you've put out during this period of time.
46.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 46 episodes. We typically run 8 to 10 episodes, and then we'll do an infinity bottle. It was one of the best ideas we had early on. Every whiskey that we've done a podcast on, dram or two goes into our Bitches Bourbon infinity bottle.
Love that.
And so every, I don't know, probably about 8 episodes, we'll open the infinity bottle up because she'll start to get a little full, and you got to take some off of that so we can put more in there. But yeah, it's a great time, and we ventured out obviously into other spirits. I like all the Epicurean things. Like when you talk about where do you like to go on vacation, somewhere I haven't eaten before that has a bar with something I haven't drank before, with some kind of taste that I haven't experienced before. Like, those are my favorite things.
Yeah.
So to be able to do all of the different types of spirits. We've had a friend of mine wanted to do a Japanese whiskey episode, so we've recently done that, and we've done the scotches and the tequilas. My husband's a big tequila guy, so we did some stuff on that. And along the way, you get to learn so much about these bottles that are in a liquor store, and the stories and the business building that has to go on for these people to be successful. And it kind of opens it up into a large kind of overarching narrative that you don't really think about until you start to dig deep into something that people don't even pay attention to mostly.
And what I actually love about kind of this part of the journey is that you went into it with no knowledge of podcasting, anything. It was just, hey, you saw the vision and you thought that this is a fun project, and you went for it. I think so many times as an entrepreneur, there's that kind of gap that's there. But that is so kind of like cool that you just decided to go for it. And now you're able to kind of like, you have something you reap what you sow, right? Like, you've put down so much value. What advice would you have for somebody that's thinking about starting a podcast?
Just do it.
Oh,
I mean, seriously, you can plan and research yourself and never do it. And it's the easiest thing on the planet. So here's the real truth, Adam. People like you can be very intimidating to people like me. Like, we see the YouTube channel and we listen to the podcast, and man, it's clean. Like,
thank you.
Like, the stuff you put out is clean. And so you can look at that and go, I'm never going to be that. Nobody asked you to be that. The only thing I asked you to be was you. And that's the only thing. The number of podcasts on the planet is ridiculous. And it's just like when you go to buy stuff somewhere, you can buy, especially with Amazon and so Joe Rogan would be like the Amazon of podcasts, right? Like, huge, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do with that, and like, whatever. All right, with SmartList, with the Jason Bateman thing.
That's right.
Like, what are you going to do with that? Absolutely nothing.
That's right.
But if they wanted to listen to him, that's who they're going to turn to. Like, they're looking to hear a voice that resonates with where they're at right now. And you can't be all things to everybody. So just be who you are, and your people will find you, and it'll just work itself out. And if you don't like it, if you go into podcasting because you want to be a millionaire, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And
100%.
That's never going to work.
100%.
It's never going to work.
Agree.
Because this is conversation. This is connection. This is people getting to know people. And if ever you're doing that with the intention of making that economically viable, the connection's never going to be there, because then you're looking at people as a commodity. And when you start looking at people as a commodity, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Or maybe you win. I know there's a few people that have done it, and maybe you win. And if you feel good about that, then you're built differently than me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just try to make sure I just don't ever look at people as a commodity.
That's awesome. April, what would you like to leave our listeners with? Like, what type of advice would you like to give them?
Don't listen to me.
What do you mean?
No, don't listen to me.
I've been telling people that you've been dropping gems the entire time.
Don't listen to me. Like, so what? I said it, right? So what? Like, feel that around, like, taste that in your mouth. And maybe that's right for you. Maybe it's not right for you. And don't feel any kind of way about that, right? Like, you're going to see a whole bunch of people who do things their way, and it's not the way you would do it. And that's fine. I think so often we're taking ourselves and we're putting it up against somebody else's, and maybe I'm doing it wrong, or maybe you're just doing it different. Try that out for a minute and just own it. Like personal responsibility, you're not going to get anywhere without it. If I win, I win. If I fuck it up, I'm the one that fucked it up. So and I don't make any excuses about those things, and just get real comfortable. And if it sucks, then just look at it and go, well, that sucked, and then just keep moving on. Like, it's fine.
April, I have to say that, moments like this is probably the best moments that I have, like, during the podcast, right? Being able to meet someone that is, like, from a different county, like, is doing different things, and learn about their experiences, and then also just being fully inspired. Like, I'm ready to go out there and just crush it, right?
Do it.
After the conversation. I love your energy, love everything that you're doing. Just such a powerful story. So thank you for coming on to the show. Glad to have you here, and so excited for kind of like the future of like the things that you do. Hopefully, are you going to be on campus at Georgia Southern? Or fantastic. So
sure.
You're going to be around the area
every week.
Fantastic. So drop by anytime.
Thanks.
I'm so glad to be able to have the opportunity to meet you. How do actually, before we leave, how do people keep in touch?
It's not easy because my last name, but it's just apriltrepagnier.com. So, or Facebook, I'm on Facebook. I'm really one of the easiest people on the planet to find. Bitchesandbourbon.com.
Yep.
Might be a little easier to spell.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.